everything. Everything out there is covered in ice, and the woods is just like that. You know, it's down to teens, the wind's been blowing, and we've had this combination of rain, melt, freeze, to where just about everything has 2 or 3 inches of ice everywhere, which pretty much has kept me out of the woods for a while. Well, it's kind of been a while since I've been in the shop, and you can tell from the bench it's been really quite a while. It's not that I haven't wanted to be in the shop, but a lot of the simple things I do on the saws I can do up in the hill now, so I don't do them here. And I've just been running the saws. I haven't had a lot of time to work on them. I've just been cutting trees and doing firewood, and just simply been running pretty hard doing that kind of thing, so I haven't had a chance to get back in here and muck around with the saws. Now, this blue one right here is a G288, and I got this a while back, and pretty much have been running it sort of crippled because it just doesn't really oil that well. And it oils some, but not enough to really do what I need to do. So today, I'm going to try to rectify that situation by putting in a different oil pump, seeing if that helps. And I can tell right off the bat that the oil pump that I have here, that I got from Farmer Tech, even though this is a Farmer Tech saw, is quite a bit different than the one that's in there right now. And I'll show you some of the differences when I get them out. But the other thing I'm going to do is put the original cap back on. One of the things I had done was drill a hole in the cap that was on there, and all that proceeded to do was pee a whole bunch of oil all over my leg. That was a failure. It was almost like the pump was pumping backwards. That's what it felt like. So I don't know if it was or not, but it would pressurize the tank versus push oil out the front. So I already took the clutch off. You got the bearing and all that. Pretty much standard affair. And I may have to change that sprocket. That sprocket is showing signs of wear. So now I'm going to pull out the old pump. So on this 200 series of saw, the crankcase seal is on the housing for the bar oil pump, and you have this O-ring out here, which is also effectively a case seal. Now I've seen it where these go in and get pinched, so it creates a leak. You try not to do that. And but this is the oil pump that came in the Farmer Tech package right here. It's definitely not the same oil pump that's in the saw. I mean, there's some casting marks that are different, but one of the real little details is if you look right there, I don't know if it'll show up in the camera, you got that screw to adjust how much oil comes out the pump. There's a little dot on there that you line up with the 1, 2, 3, 4. There's a little tiny spot on that screw, which makes life a little bit easier. They don't have that on the other one. Let me get these little screws out. What I hope to do is I hope to get this to work, and then I want to go up and cut some trees down with it, but I'll start out with bucking some firewood with it just to make sure it's oiling. But I'm going to press this G288 into service, and I can tell you right now that I've enjoyed this saw. I know there's people who hate Farmer Tech for all kinds of reasons, but I try to look past all that, just see the saws for what they are. And The one thing I can tell you is this is a good saw. I've really enjoyed it. See if I can get this to come out. Come on. There it goes. Wow. There's all kinds of crap in there. Yeah, that's going to be fun. Get this thing all lubed up and see if I can set it right back in there. Okay, well, in order to get it on, I'm going to have to use a tool. Never thought I'd have to use. But and basically what that is, it's a Husqvarna service tool to get bearing, or to get seals on there. And it's got a little lip on the inside. It sits over the crank and just set right in there. So we're done. Success or failure will be based on whether or not I see oil and I don't have an air leak at the bottom of my crank. That's it. If I can peel out the worm gear. Right there. This guy goes next. That ought to be enough. It's either coming out or it's not. Kind of cut and dry. See if I can get this to start and see if I can get it to pump. And then we'll put it up in the wood and get a much better idea of what we got. Now I like this saw. I'm telling you right now, I like this darn thing. Much better. Look at it pour out of there. We now have a working saw. So the Farmer Tech pump I put in there, look at that thing pump. That's a gusher of oil. That's exactly what that saw needs. So I think the first thing I'm going to do is I'm just going to go out there and run it. I think the G660 is probably a little further along in terms of development. Just because so many people have spent time with it and there's so many different ways you can make them, you know, a good saw. But I like this damn thing anyway, even though I can understand why a person would go for the G660 because it's a lot closer to being a developed saw. This one's not far off. I mean, just that oil pump, I think that's the only really thing it needed. It needed the oil pump, and I need a little piece of plastic on that bar adjuster. And that's it. And this thing is ready to roll. It makes good power. It starts. It idles. I mean, it just does everything I want it to do. So I mean, I've been really pleased with this thing. Really been pleased with this saw. So. I find it fun. So let me get the bar and chain back on it. Let's get back up there on the hill and see if we can't make this thing earn its keep, you know? Cut some wood. Now, one of the things I ended up doing, it actually helped, was I took the die grinder and made the slot on this guard right there, opened up, matching what the slot was on the case. The case is correct. The way it came, this didn't really overlap with my Husky bar that well. So I think the combination of the right weight oil, opening up this new pump, set to 4, is going to make me a happy dude. For that matter, I might be cranking that oil faster than I want. And that would be just a complete 180-degree change from where it was before. You know, I'm glad I waited. I was going to do a video and I wasn't going to be very pleased. And I basically decided to wait so that I could be fair to the saw, because I was really frustrated with the fact it wasn't oiling. I ran it anyway. I mean, I got it to oil to the point where it didn't, well, obviously it didn't eat up the bar. Those longer cuts I was doing where I was noodling, it was getting dry, you know. You know, I could cut a tree down, and I could buck it up a little bit, it was fine. But really, it needed a lot more oil than what I was getting out of it. You know, it seems to me like this pump is going to provide that for me. One of the other things I ended up doing was I die grind that a little bit right here, because what was happening when I first got it was this plastic right here was too thick. It was holding the cover out, it wouldn't let it bite. So really very minor things I had to do in order to get this thing to where it is now. And I still made it cut wood, it still was functional. But having a legitimate oil pump on there is going to make a huge difference for me. This saw is going to get a lot more time. I mean, I like its power delivery, for lack of a better word. And that's hard for me to say, you know, because I'm pretty picky. But the way it lays out its power is just very, very nice. Just a big, strong saw with a very wide power band. Now, that's the way the original Huskies were, of my 281s the same way. Well, there's another little thing here, and that's because the parts for this are now available, right? That means I'll be able to get my 281 back running. Its ignition had fried. So what I'm going to do is get one of the ignitions for one of these and put it on that saw and bring that one back to life. So to the haters out there, just spare me. Let's see whether or not that actually gets to the chain now. I'm looking down there and I'm seeing like this little mist coming off the chain. Look at all that oil. I'll give a little bit of a tweak and a tune too. I think it needs to lean out a little bit. I had it set for running, oh my god, it was like 5 degrees out. You know? That'll do it. Yeah, that's lots of oil. I may have to turn it down some. But for now, I'm just going to let it rip. Because I'm going to be doing noodling and it's going to be cold out. So having that quantity of oil is going to help things. Alright, choke is off. Let me see if I can just lean it out just a little bit. Just a little bit. Better. Key to get this pump on for me was get that little sleeve in there. Let me see if I can get a picture of it. This thing right here, and you basically set that on the crank. This side goes onto the crank, and then what it does is it goes and spreads the seal for you. So you push it right on. So that was actually very, very important on this particular installation. Now I had this one off and back on with no problem, so this seal was more flexible that way, but the one that's in the new pump just simply wasn't going to go on without a little bit of assistance here. So this was absolutely required. It's not a big deal, but if you're going to work on these things, you need to have stuff like this. Here's the part number for that Husqvarna sleeve, the fitting sleeve. And 5025052-01. Alright, now back to the saw. As I was saying, I'm an unabashed fan of this particular offering from Farmertech. I happen to like the old Huskies, the 200 series. And yeah, people are going to hate them because they're Farmertechs. But this is a pretty good offering. Now, the difference between this and the 660 is, you know, there's an argument for each one. I guess where I come down on it is something like this. If you want a ready-to-work saw from Farmertech, you want a blue one, those pro-level ones they're selling now. The 660 was a little bit further along in the development curve from my perspective than the Huskies were. And because I had to deal with the oil pump here, I'm going to say that's still the case. But the rest of this saw is at least as good as a 660. In some cases, it feels a little bit better. You know, I don't know if you remember, but I had problems with the bars, the handlebars as they came. I used to put the highway handlebars on them. Well, this handlebar here feels pretty stiff. It feels like it has decent material. The pull start feels a little better. And there's just things that are intrinsic to the Husqvarna design that make it easier to work on and stuff like that. And all that's true with this particular saw because it is basically a clone of the 200 series. So if you're a Husky guy, you know, really the only thing that's a detraction as the layout of the saw is relative to the 660 is that outboard clutch, you know, inboard sprocket. So changing the bar and chain and also adjusting the chains a little bit harder to do on this saw than it is a 660. So I guess where I come down on it is I like them both. I think the 660 is probably a little bit closer to being work ready than this saw was because I had to change the pump. But now that I got the pump in there, I think this saw is just as work ready as the 660 is. At least the rest of the saw, the ignition, the carburetor, the cylinder, and all that kind of stuff. This is a good running machine right here. At least mine is. And the next part of that decision is the day-to-day life. And I got to tell you, the 660's external sprocket, and then also the ability to adjust the chain from the cover, that might be what it takes to make a person choose one of those, because that makes it a lot easier to live with. That's a very nice feature. I put a lot of time on this saw, so I'm going to get a sense of how it operates. And from the motor perspective, the carburation, you know, all that stuff about what makes a saw run nice, this saw is right there. And I would say from that perspective, it's actually a little further along than the 660 was when I first got those. This is really, I think, a fairly well done saw from the motor perspective, the way it runs, idle, starts, all that kind of stuff. And it vibrated a lot when I first got it, and it doesn't vibrate that much now. It just needed to get broke in. I'm not sure I understand the physics of it, but it's just the way it is. So I'm a fan. I like it. is I have two Farmer Techs that actually have turned out to be pretty good saws. One of them I can't run because it's just too damn big. And that's this one. You know, I got to tell you, I didn't know what to think when I first got the G288, but where I've come down on it, it's a beast. And the only thing I had to do with this saw is tighten up a few K-screws. Everything else just worked. It just runs. But I'll tell you what, it's hard to start for me. And it's not because the saw is intrinsically hard to start. It's just I'm getting older, and it's hard for me to generate the snap required to spin this thing over to get it going. But it's going to get more use this year for sure. So this G888, I think, is a win for them. I think it's a good saw. And I think this 288 is a win for them as well. And I'll tell you what, as compared to the 372 saws, base saws that they sold, I had my hands on all of them. I had the G372, the G372XT, the G372XP. I'd pick one of these over any of those three saws every day, all day. And the quality of the saw, the fit and finish, is a lot better than those saws were. You know what I'm saying? So, for what it's worth, this is a win. I think it is. Change the oil pump out. I don't know, they might even do it for you. I don't know what they're going to do with that, because obviously that was a bad pump. But that new pump was obviously from a different vendor, and it obviously works a lot better. And I don't know what they cost, what, 25, 30 bucks? This blue saw plus that pump is a lot of power for not a lot of money. And it's a good saw, and I think it's fun to run. So it's going to get a fair amount of time with my work. Just ice everywhere. Everything's ice. See if I can get down here. I'd like to see if I get up on the hill, and there's a chance I can't, because I want to run that blue saw. Yeah, the roads, I'm having a hard time even get up the road. It's so full of ice. Really, really not good. You know, snow is a wonderful thing, because this road is just absolute big chunk of ice. And yeah, I got to be in four-wheel drive and I'm spinning, but the snow actually is giving me a little bit of traction. Otherwise, I wouldn't get up here. But I've got about 2 or 3 inches of snow down. That's about it. The wind's going to pretty much get rid of all that. The other thing about that snow blower I've got is that there's no windrow for the snow to collect behind. Let me go get some of that real quick, just to see if it is oiling, and then next time we'll come up and start working on that over there, I think.